right, thank you for watching, tuning in to another episode of the Asphalt Entrepreneur. Today we got the man, the myth, the legend, I guess you'd say. Everybody on the forums is excited to see what you have to say. Ryan Anderson, with Premiere. Is it Premiere Line Striping and Seal Coating or Premiere Seal Coating Line Striping?
Premiere seal coating and line striping.
Yeah, out in Oxford, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks for joining on.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to.
This is going to be a good time. We're looking to hopefully progress the industry a little bit and get some guys some knowledge of. Everybody's asking questions. Sometimes they get destroyed on the forums about dumb questions, but no question's dumb. I mean, everybody started somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we
Tell
start,
them who you ask, right?
that's right. So when we start off with Ryan, let's see. Where'd you start in your asphalt journey? Pavement maintenance, seal coating, striping. What'd you do?
I was 17, 18. I moved from Massachusetts out to live with my uncle in Michigan. I got into some trouble and my father wanted me to get away from the people that were bad influences in my life. So he moved me out to the middle of the cornfields where there were no people at all. But my uncle owned an asphalt company and his sealer guys never showed up for work. Go figure. And
Sounds
at
like
the time, I didn't understand why that was, but I was always getting dragged out of bed at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to go work when these guys didn't show up or answer the phone. So I learned doing it out of buckets and drums. They had an old 70 Chevy. This is Flint, Michigan, heart of GM. So they keep every Chevy until it's in the ground, and we just went out every day and did buckets. And I'll tell you, if you don't know much about Michigan, the average driveway out there is 200 feet long. So it's and they don't get really much money for it.
right.
There's but I learned how to do it that way. Was shown how coal tar is volatile. I remember there's no trees out there. So I remember laying under the shadow of the tailgate and my uncle pouring water on my face because I didn't know I wasn't
You're
supposed
the
to touch my
burn.
face. Yeah, yeah. So that was pretty much it. And then I came back to Massachusetts after a couple of years and got a job working with my dad driving trailer trucks. And then my wife and I started having kids, and it was like, we need to do something to make a couple extra bucks. And I had already tried the second job working for UPS and doing this, and nothing, number one, scratched the itch, and number two, paid what I needed to make. So I said, I know how to seal coat. And at the time, I didn't think there were that many companies around. I didn't even know where you could buy it in bulk for that matter. And um, I got a credit card with like a $3,000 limit, and I bought a cheap little 6x10 landscape trailer. The company that I was working for was a plumbing and heating distributor. So there were always oil tanks that had been hit by the fork truck or dropped off a dock that you could get for practically scrap price. So I bought an oil tank and I jerry rigged a lid on it that I could use an agitator and mix it up. I put a ball valve in it, grabbed a couple of buckets, and that's pretty much where it all started.
You were in business.
Yeah, I mean, I tell anybody, like, if anybody with a bucket and a squeegee can call themselves a seal coating company.
Right.
You know,
That's true. Yep.
that's why I'm also not too quick to harp or jump on guys, I think, like that, because everybody starts somewhere, right?
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
just a
I
matter
started,
of where you take it.
right. I started similar. I started with homemade squeegees. I did it when I was in high school, actually. Homemade squeegees. And I went around to my neighborhood, asked if somebody wanted a driveway seal. They said yes. I'm like, would you mind buying the buckets? And then from
And
there,
that's what it takes, right?
yeah, and then from
You
there, I
know,
just building it up.
yeah, you get a couple of older guys who are happy to see like a kid who is trying to do something and would almost rather pay twice as much to give you that shot versus doing it themselves or paying somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say a lost art, but it's a lost thing. The kids nowadays, I mean, to get somebody out to work nowadays that's in high school is tough.
Listen, I was just watching this video with Elon Musk, right, talking about how, you know, he he looks through his companies for like things that you don't even need, right? Just things that are there for no reason. That they're it's a part in a car that serves no purpose. It has a manufacturing, though it has machines, it has people that operate that, it has divisions that run it. And when you find out something is completely obsolete and you just get rid of it,
Right.
and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I can't even find a guy, I can't even find a guy to run a blower for 20 25 bucks an hour, let alone run a whole division of a giant company. Like, you know, it's a very hard industry to be involved in. And I tell people who are starting from nothing that um it's not going to happen overnight, and I have this thing, I've mentioned in a couple of videos where you go through, if you're a seal coating company that can go through and make it through your third or fourth year, then you're and still manage to get the phone to ring, then you're here to stay.
Right.
Okay. If the first year you got a business, everybody who is around you, your family, your relatives, they want to support you. They want to see you do your best, right? So they're gonna they're gonna hire you. Either if their driveway needs it or not, you're gonna get a shot. Okay. Every shot is an opportunity for another shot. So you get to do Uncle Larry's house. Now you go to Uncle Larry's house and you get to put a sign out in front of Uncle Larry's house, and you get all the traffic that drives by Uncle Larry. You get all the neighbors from Uncle Larry. You get all the people that Uncle Larry's going to talk to, you know, and that happens overwhelmingly through the first year because everybody wants to support you, Um, the second year comes along, and now those people, they don't need their driveways done. So now you're basically you're hoping that your reputation falls on people who had past experiences, who are still talking about you. you know I get a lot of people that message me through YouTube, and they're like, what's the best way to start and build a seal coating business? And it's, just do good work. Be honest, do good work, don't cut corners. A lot of guys make a mistake when they get into doing this, and that is they put the cart before the horse. So, you know, guys, oh, I'm starting a seal coating business, and I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna buy this, Seal Right 1,000-gallon tow tank, and I just bought this truck, and we got all this support equipment. And in my mind, everything he's mentioning, I'm like, it's like a calculator, right? As a business owner, anytime, whether it's on TV, your fucking Thanksgiving, it doesn't matter. Somebody starts talking about business, or in your mind, you're thinking of money. What's this cost? What's it going to cost to maintain? And it makes for very, boring conversations with your wife if she's, wants to buy a lamp, and you're trying to justify how that lamp is only $10, but it came from China. How did they make that? Put it on a ship it here, ship it to the store, like, and I apply that to everything. And you listen to guys who jump in this business, and you know they spend tons of money on trucks and equipment, and the first year everything's good because they got all that support, and they're able to pay their bills. And then the second year, things are you know things are okay, but they're not making what they made the first year. And then in the third season, if they can't keep that up, well, now you got all these payments that you have to manage. And how do you do that? By when you don't have the work coming in, whatever little work that you're able to get your hands on, right? You have to put towards paying these bills. And people don't do that. They take care of their families first, which means that their payments go, they start over, rolling over, and then before you know it, XYZ seal coating is no more. And that's why it's important to, you want to get your foot in the door. You don't want to have very high expectations. Just do a good job, be honest with people, and you'll find success a lot sooner than you would if were unethical and lied to people. I One thing that is important for guys to understand is, it's not going to happen overnight. And I'm sure why you're doing this and why, like, I have my YouTube channel and stuff is you want to help guys not make the same mistakes that you make. And that's what you're talking about when you're talking about like the forums. You're watching people ask these questions, right?
Legit
And
question.
then yeah, and in your mind you're thinking like, is this fucking guy serious? Like, but then you remember what it was like to be that guy,
Right.
right? Like, and not know anything and kind of shoot by your hip. And
Yeah.
then you got guys that just rip those guys apart, and then you got guys who try to give them overcomplicated answers to simple problems,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
I look at this the same way, is that, like, you can't get into this and expect that you're going to kill it. And what happens is a lot of guys make that mistake, and they'll start their company, then they'll start throwing all this money into pay-per-click advertising, and they start to overthink a very simple problem,
Yeah.
which is, again, if you just do a good job, people will find you.
True.
There's
Yeah.
enough people out there doing bad work. Where me and you are, what, 60 miles away,
Yeah.
and the difference in where we are versus quality contractors is crazy, because you probably have 100 companies between me and you,
Oh, I'm
but
sure.
only 10 of them are good.
Right.
you
Yep.
know
Yep. So you said a few good points in there that I wanted to back up a little bit. So you had the tank, the 55 gallon, was it a 55 gallon drum
Yeah.
or oil tank? How,
275 gallon.
how long did you stay with that system, and how did you market yourself before you moved up?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I kept that going. So when I was working for FW Web, the local plumbing and heating distributor. um I got to the point where I got rid of my 6x10. I bought a 14-foot equipment trailer and I put two oil tanks on it. I was working. I was that guy that stay away from spray. And, I mean, he had every cheesy tagline. I didn't know enough about spraying to talk about it, like, in a way that was educational to anybody that would benefit me
Right.
or the customer. I just didn't want any guy with a spray rig getting that job. So what I would do is, I'm a firm believer in fake it till you make it. I mean, I'd go on websites for a fucking guy on the other side of the country, and I would just jack his pictures, or jack pictures of a parking lot. And I think, like, Charlie Baker called me out one time. I was like, isn't that like a fucking English car or something? Like, isn't that a Russian Lada? And it's like, yeah, it is. So what? But you want people. It's like, you're not going to go get a restaurant for a big family outing, right? And you're looking through pictures and you find some little shack. Like, they might make great food, but if the business doesn't make you feel like it can handle what you have it to offer, then you're not gonna get their business.
Yeah. Good
And
point.
that's not. And listen, dude, you just want to be able to prove that you have what it takes, right? So I didn't want people to look at me and think like that I couldn't do it because I only had two fucking oil tanks.
Right.
Should I not swear? Like, I feel like
No,
I
no,
shouldn't
no. Yeah, go ahead.
swear. Okay.
Hey,
Good.
most of
Once
the
I
people,
start getting fired up, man, it just starts coming out.
most of the people we're going to talk to are the same as us. They probably
All
swear.
right. I don't think you're gonna get monetized this early, so you don't have to worry about me ruining it for you. All right. But you get people that are just like, you know, they come from this mindset like, oh, I don't want to hire that guy because, you know, I just didn't want my equipment or what I had to be able to stop me from getting any jobs. So what happened, and a perfect example is, I had this guy called me for a car dealership, and I had these creative ways, like, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I had these very creative ways of getting people to call me, right? Like, whether it was waking up in the morning and clicking out my competition's budget on Google Ads,
Yeah.
and just ensuring that every phone call went to me through the day. And I'm just sitting in my trailer truck with a 5-hour ride back from Bangor, just answering phone calls, writing down addresses. And I showed up at a place one day. It was a car dealership, and they had two dealerships, a Volkswagen and a Subaru. And this would have been the biggest job that I had gotten up to that point. square footage wise. Each lot was like 130,000 square feet,
Yeah.
right? And so I get them, I think I charged them like 27 grand for both fucking parking lots, which shows you like how desperate I was and where we were like in pricing 15 years ago, But I I get it and I show up and I got 2 oil tanks on a trailer. And
Yeah.
the guys that owns the dealership, like his mouth dropped. Like he's like, what's that? And I'm like, that's my rig, man. That's my rig. That's who you hired. Like,
Well,
and I could see the skepticism in his face, like, oh my God, and uh, long story short, I still do work for that family.
yeah.
Like I did such a good job on that lot, and I probably lost money. I mean, how do you? But at the end, because you're squeegeeing it,
Yeah.
and you just the time it takes, and that little extra material that you use, and it's like, um, but I use jobs like that to catapult me into getting bigger jobs,
Yeah.
So it's all about your portfolio. And that's why I say fake it till you make it, is because you got guys who, I tell them, you can go to my Instagrams, my anything, and steal my pictures. You can use my pictures on your website. I don't care, like, but people are going to start searching for a quality company to hire, and you want them to see pictures of big jobs for them to know that you can handle big jobs. If all you do, and there's nothing wrong with being a driveway killer, if all you do is driveways and all you can market to your customers is driveways, then that's what you're going to do. That's you're going to do driveways. If people find you, and if people find you, and they can like grab you at any time, and use you for a huge project all the way down to a small project, then you're going to be the person that company calls every time they need something, as long as you do a good job.
Yeah.
you know so marketing, when you're going from small, you just have to make that right decision. Where what I did was I did that big job, right? I took that car dealership job, and I applied it to buying better equipment, because a lot of guys are just happy with what they have. Oh,
Right.
this is working for me. It makes money, you know, but at the same time, it's all about your appearance, right? Because you don't, it's like when I drove trailer trucks, all the trucks that were getting inspected were all the shit looking trucks. They were the trash trucks. They were the seal coating trucks that had sealer all over them, you know, and that's like, that attracts a certain type of customer as well. If people see you running around with ragged equipment, old stuff, they know like that guy's cheap. That guy's going to be cheap to hire. He's probably not going to do the best work. He's obviously sloppy as shit. He's got it all over his trucks. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to have to pay top dollar. It's a wash. One hand washes the other, you
Right.
know? So by marketing yourself in a way, you can almost pick what kind of work you want to do. Now, some guys are just happy doing driveways, right? One thing that you'll probably agree with is that it's great to do all this big commercial work, but it sucks waiting for money. It sucks. If I could share with my QuickBooks pages right now, like you would fall over. You're just, I'm waiting for so much money, over $250,000 in checks I'm waiting for right now. And it sucks because if I had that in my bank account, like what could I do with
Right.
that
Yeah.
money right now? What could I do if I had that capital? So, you know, but driveways are great because you got to check that day. That's money in hand.
Yeah.
Your margins are much higher on driveways. So if you're able to go in and market yourself to driveways, you'll probably be in a lot more money. Like at the end of the day, that you can tangible assets, as opposed to sitting on all your money to do bigger stuff. Now you know having the ability to do both is great because you can use one to fill in on the other. And I tell a lot of guys that are just starting out, they're not in a position to be able to do that. Like you could go do parking lots, and then fill your days in with driveways, where they can do driveways, but they can't fill their weekends with parking lots
Right. Yeah.
because they just don't have the equipment to do it,
Yeah.
And it's very easy to look at what you have for equipment and go, yeah, this is making me money. Like, why would I want to upgrade? But you upgrade because number one, you want that automation, right? Like the hardest thing, is finding guys to come work for you, right? So all of my equipment that I've bought has been based around I can't find guys to come to work. If I got a 300,000 square foot parking lot that needs to be blown off, what good is it to have three push blowers if I don't have three guys to push the blowers? You know, so you might spend 15 grand and go out and buy yourself a big ride on hurricane blower or something because now one guy can blow that whole parking lot in half the time that it would take the three guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to spend that money, you know, and that means you can't buy a Harley and you can't take your kids to Disney, but at the same time you're benefiting yourself.
Yeah.
The same thing with like one thing that I said once I bought my first spray rig, right, was man, I've been killing myself doing this job like with buckets and squeegees. I've been killing myself,
Yeah.
not just carrying physically killing myself by carrying these fucking buckets, but the time, that extra material that I waste, like all of this stuff, like you need to tighten up if you're going to run a successful business, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
remember when I got my first spray, I was like shocked. I finished the first driveway and I was like, oh my God, like
yeah,
I'm never going back to brushing and squeegeeing again.
nope. And they do have their time, right? Like they have their time in a place, but if you're trying to be efficient and do a good job, and look, you want to go start some shit, go in one of those forums and say spraying's better than squeegee, or say squeegee's better than spraying, and
Actually
then
did
just
that
sit back
last
with
year.
the popcorn, dude, and just watch these people rip themselves apart.
Well, you know
Because
what? You actually brought, I think it was you. It might not have been, I'm pretty sure it was you that brought up a great point. Like that battle happens all the time. And everybody's
yeah,
like, oh, I put down so much more when I squeegee than I do when I spray. And I believe it was you that said, I don't agree with that one bit because if I spray, I can squeegee over it and pull off excess material.
yep, I do, and I actually have winter is my time to sit down and I record a year's worth of everything. I have these 512 mega, I have hundreds of micro disc cards here to be edited for videos. And one thing I did make a video of that
Yeah.
is, we're gonna put this to bed right now, and that's it's true. And look, to each his own. I told you I started with a squeegee. I'm not gonna rip the squeegee guys
You
apart.
mean,
I say that's you said it, it's an art form to be able to get out there and manipulate that squeegee is an art form. And you'll see people, oh bullshit, no, it's not. Any asshole can okay, fine. We'll go out on a tennis court and tell me it's not an art form because you're doing the same thing now, but everything that you do is going to show a different way. Where sealer, everything is just hidden,
yeah.
but you get in a position where you're able to market yourself to the right people, then that enables you to get a lot better work, a lot bigger work. Bigger work means more money. More money means more profit. More profit means more equipment. And it's a snowball, and it'll get rolling pretty fast, if you let it.
Yep. No, starting out, what was the first thing? Well, I guess you said a spray equipment was the first thing that you were like, holy crap, this thing totally changed the way I was working.
Yeah.
But I guess on the other thing is when you first started out, do you have pushers like the MA10
Yeah. Yeah.
filters that you started with?
Yep. I didn't do the pour pot thing. So when I lived in Michigan, I never even saw an MA10. It was my uncle used the fucking squeeze bottle stuff for everything,
Yeah.
And then I came out here, got an MA10, and I was like, wow, And look, you got guys who say, oh, you don't need hot rubber to fill those cracks. Like those are guys that don't have machines that can put hot rubber in those cracks, because anything that you can do to bill your customer for more money, and it sounds horrible to say that, right? Like, oh, you're just there to take them, but you're giving them a service in return, one that's actually beneficial, because I'm one of these guys that believes that, yeah, does it, seal coating doesn't do anything to preserve the life of asphalt. Okay, it doesn't. So it doesn't, and that's a hot topic. Oh, yes, it stops against oxidation, but my thing is like it's a water-based product, and anything water-based is susceptible to anything oil-based,
Right.
So you can go out there and try to sell a customer on seal coating and the benefits of seal coating, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, crack filling is where it's at, if to stop further deterioration. So if you can go into a customer and go, hey, look, I have this method that I can offer you that's maybe different from the next guy, uh, then that's beneficial to them. And look, you're charging $1, in some cases $1 a foot for this crack. So it's an upsell. It's a way to give the driveway what it needs, or the asphalt when it needs. And but that those MA10s they have they you can only use them so much in certain situations. Now again, hot topic, go on the forums and say you need a tow behind, and guys will say, oh, I can do 100,000 square foot parking lot with a little whatever, it's with a pour pot and an MA30. It's like no, you can't. You can't. You can't. And you can't be that efficient with it. As an MA10 operator, like if you have cracks that are very tight together, you're gonna make a fucking mess. It's gonna get all over your tires. If it's tight pieces of asphalt, how many times have you been pushing that thing, and then all of a sudden there's like a knot of asphalt on the top of the wheel because you just actually rolled over what you put in and ripped the whole thing right out. So, like, yeah, they're great. Pour pots are great for certain situations and for guys that are starting out, but you're not going to be able to compete on a level of any greatness without a better setup. And look, there is so much money to be made in this business that there is no fucking excuse why you can't upgrade and have nicer stuff, and I'm not king money bags, right? Like, but one thing is you got to buy equipment to have things to depreciate on your taxes. Now, you might believe, like I believe, that half of these guys in these rooms, they're cash guys. They're not running legal businesses where they have to pay taxes, carry workman's comp, so you can exclude all of those guys. Like you're not even in the conversation because you're not even playing by the rules. All right. So, you can't make $1 million a year doing this and not buy more equipment, because it's either you're going to buy the equipment or you're going to give it to your guys in the form of a bonus, or a little bit of both. But you're definitely not going to keep it. The government's not going to let that happen, So, if you can get into a situation where, every couple 2 or 3 years, you're trying to buy something new. A crack machine is besides your spray rig, then the best piece of equipment that you're going to be able to add to your business with the most amount of profitability, right? In my opinion, it's close. Like, a lot of guys will go, well, why I don't, pave, or it's a half and half business, right? Well, half the guys seal coat, half of their business is seal coating, half of their business is paving, or more paving, some seal coating. But at the same time, you can't get like a paver can't get in, doesn't have the same margin that seal coating has, right? I was just doing we work with a couple different paving companies, and I was just looking over a big, it's a 150,000 square foot parking lot that they want to mill and pave. And I'm looking at, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, let's see, figure out how much asphalt this is, because I want to know, like, what's the margin of what this paver is making,
Yeah.
Dude, he's going and ripping out a fucking, he's set up for it. He's got all the milling equipment, but he's only making like 30 grand on that job. Now, it might take 1 or 2 days to do it, a day and a half for them probably, but 30 grand, like, on a lot on that, to me, I mean, those are margins in seal coating. I can go out and do a big parking lot and make that same margin with half the work, half the equipment. I mean, think about it. Like, you can get into a situation where, you know, asphalt is somewhat profitable. Seal coating's a lot more profitable, right? If you get what you're worth.
Right,
but in my opinion, crack filling is where it's at, because I have a thing. on my desk up here, and it's like, so like crack filler to the person costs about, depending on what your price is. My price is my cost is about 17 cents a linear foot on rubber, right?
Yeah.
That's bought in the machine, labor, everything. It goes up to 25 cents a linear foot.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're charging customers a buck a foot and you have a parking lot that's got 40,000 feet of crack in it, that's a big crack filling job.
Huge.
That's
Yeah.
a crack filling job that's going to almost pay for your machine in one deal, you
Right.
know? And, and yeah, you can go out with small equipment, or I even see some of these oil jacket machines that are just meant to fed a pour pot or an MA10. And yeah, you can go out and do big jobs like that. It's not going to look as neat as it would if you had a wand. And, you know, we're at this point, we are at two different levels of, in my opinion, quality.
Mhm.
Okay. Because the way that each of those machines fill that crack are completely different. One of them, it drops it into a cup and then the rubber falls into the crack, fills the crack, and then fills the cup back up, right? It's a gravity fed type
Yeah.
situation where your toe behinds are hydraulic. You squeeze that trigger, it's like a fucking fire hose coming out of that thing. And it's not only pushing it down and pumping all the air out with it, but it's, it's full. Anybody who's run a wand machine knows it's full by how the disc slides across the ground.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hydroplanes. So, you know, uh, it's just it's a much better piece of equipment. And look, a lot of guys, oh, I'm not buying a $60,000-$70,000 piece of equipment. It's like, okay, mine paid for itself the first year I bought it
Yeah.
because I got into something that was taught to me by that Brad from B&E Sealcoating in Michigan.
Yeah.
And he's like, I saw him post one time that he did this pallet. He has a pallet price, you
That's
know?
well. Before you go any further, you're making this super easy for me because I was gonna say, you're leading into this. You have a great concept of selling these jobs by pallet price instead of by linear foot. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to ruin it,
No, go ahead.
for all those guys, for all us guys. But, think about it. It's like, if you know your customer, if you know your competition is going into these meetings or bid walkthroughs with their customers, everybody's getting the same paper, 33,000 linear feet of crack suspected, you know, uh, and that everybody sees that number. They're coming up with a number in their head of what they think that amount of cracks are worth. And then they're all going to throw their bids out, right? Some guy's going to bid $1, some guy's going to bid 92 cents, some guy's going to bid 77 cents, you know, and then I come in, and then so at that rate, if you're a buck a foot at 33,000 linear feet, then that's 33 grand just in crack filling. We just did a job where we were averaging like 22,000 feet per pallet of crack. And once you really got a good idea of how far your rubber goes, and you can start playing this game that I do, which is the pallet per price, price per pallet.
Yeah.
So I'll go into a job where, they have 222,000 feet of crack filling, and, when you have your low numbers on crack filling, it's going to hover around a buck a foot. But once you start getting up into those high numbers, you can play with your numbers 25 cents. So you have from 25 cents up to $1
Right.
to be in that window to try to win this bid, and you look at your competition and you wonder, what are they gonna bid? What are they bidding? And if you're a smart enough contractor, that at the beginning of the season, you've already had your competition do a handful of dummy bids for you. So you know exactly like where their pricing is.
Yeah.
And where those are going to come in. And if you have a customer that's looking at, $175,000 to $210,000, let's say, of crack filling for this 250,000 linear feet, and then you come in at like $70,000, the first thing they're going to say is, why are you so low?
Yeah,
And
you
then
did it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. What you I don't think that did you come out and look at this? I think you need to come look at it. I was there, I saw it. And it's like so we, and each pallet price is dependent on, is there a lot of grass? You got a lot of cleanup, I mean, it can start at 7,000 and go as high as you want, as long as it doesn't come anywhere close to what they're going to bid, you
Right.
know? Um, and everybody wins. I mean, you can if you got a couple good guys who are good at putting down crack filler, like you can put a pallet a day down, no fucking problem. So, I mean, if somebody said, "Hey, look, are you losing $10,000 compared to what everybody else is paying?" Like, yeah. And I'm a guy that I don't want people to charge like, oh, I want to charge you to charge as much as you can. But you also got to make it fair for the customer,
Right.
I mean, and that's the people say, well, I think you're off. And I'm like, listen, we're coming at this from two different approaches. Number one, I am set up with like the most efficient equipment that there is. You can't, there's probably other companies, but not around here that have this type of equipment that will allow me to get in and out of here. I can clean this parking lot. I can clean those cracks. I can put that rubber down and be out of here in one day. So that's number one, why my price is so cheap. Number two, I'm a bigger company. I have a very low rubber price, you know, and number three, I don't need to get rich off of this one job, you
Right.
know, and if, this is a give and take. I'd rather get my company bigger and I'd rather get richer faster than by going slow and doing a good job and taking this big customer base with me, you
Mhm.
know, and if you can get into a situation where now you got a good sprayer, now you got a good crack machine, you're halfway there. Now a lot of things, and not to take you off course here, but a lot of things. And I had a guy, we were doing a job Saturday night out at a gas station. Another seal company pulled in. Andrew Moyer from Moyer Seal Coating pulled in, and him and I start talking, and he's telling me how, he just fired his line striping guy and wanted to know if I'd be willing to stripe for him. And I said, yeah, man, I'll do it. But like, why don't you just do it yourself? Like, and I noticed this with a lot of paving companies, and still now a lot of seal coating companies. I mean, the company that I was there to stripe the gas station parking lot, they were a seal coating company.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of them, they sub it out. Now they're like, well, I'd rather just pay you to do it, you know. And that's what I used to do. Like when I started doing this, I'd get these little parking lots. I hooked up with this guy, Gonzalo from Straight Arrow Striping in Worcester, and he was my guy. He charged me $5 a line, and then it was that big job at the dealerships that I was like, man, I'm thinking all these lines. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to give this guy $1,300. Like, think of that. I'm gonna have to give this guy $1,300. Like, I just wrote like a $60,000 check, 10 minutes before I started talking to you to pay down a balance. And I'm thinking, like, I got to get this guy $1,300. But that made me go into Sealmaster and look at the owner and go, he had a Titan 2850. And I was like, I want that. Give me that. Because I had bought in from Asphalt Kingdom this little tiny little Titan Powerline 850, which is like a weed whacker motor. It's good for doing 10 lines, but you can't do anything more than that.
Right.
And so I went in, and that was the day that I became a line striper, right? I went in, I bought, at the time it was like $3,300, and I did my first, I mean, two dealerships. These fucking lines, they looked like this, like it was just such a mess. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't give that guy $1,300, like that's for sure.
I think that's one of the things that I really think that's one of the things that keeps people seal coaters from going into the striping, because you can do a bang ass job of seal coating, and then you get lines in there that look like crap, like bananas, and the
Yeah.
whole job looks like crap. So
Yep.
why not just let somebody else do it that knows what they're doing? I
Yeah.
think that's like the what everybody thinks.
I think that's the hardest thing too, to train guys on the striping.
Yeah.
I think and that's my, like, that's why I believe in it's not showing it here, but I believe in, straight lines matter because as a as a line striper, you have a responsibility to leave your mark because everybody who's going to follow you from that point is going to follow your lines.
Right,
So
yeah.
if you go in and you stripe a new parking lot for a paver, it's your duty to make sure that when you look down the row, all those lines stop on a thread, that everything is straight, that everything is even and placed right. Striping is all about aesthetics, right? It's like it, and once you understand that, and look, I mean, there are guys like Charlie who have been doing this, you know, 30 years or whatever, and they're 33 years old, and you got guys who, have been doing this and they're self-taught for not as long, but they feel they know as much, and that it's one of those things where, look, man, if the first like big striping job that I ever got was the TripAdvisor headquarters in Needham, right? They just built a 7-floor parking garage, right? And this is probably I had a friend of mine who owned a mechanical business like HVAC,
Yep.
and he goes, "Hey, have you heard of this thing called Blue Book?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, it's a bidding website, but here's the thing. It is known, but it's not really known. And if you just sign up under your business, whatever it is you do, your profession, you gotta it's so if it was TripAdvisor building this building, TripAdvisor goes through Blue Book, they find all the subcontractors, right? So
Yeah.
let's say you're the only guy who's put in for line striping for the garage, you're the only guy that answered. Now, and whoever's watching this probably knows how many times we've talked to a customer and they're like, "You're the only person that's called me back," or "You're the only person that answered my emails."
Yeah.
As soon as you hear that, bang, add another 25% because you're the only fucking person that's going to get that job. And
Right.
it's the same thing. Like when you look at this TripAdvisor, he said to me, "You can go in there and put whatever price you want. If they get the job, then and you're the only line striper, then they're gonna pay you whatever you put down because they're not gonna let you hold up that. So I signed up for it. First bid is for TripAdvisor. I put in for like $47,000, right? To lay out in line stripe the 7-story garage, right? And it probably had 200 something parts, but it's the same design, but 7 times,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The only difference is the top floor and the bottom floor. All the floors in between are mirror images, and they're all straight stalls just up against the wall. So like I took technical drawing in high school, so I could read like a plan, like somebody hands you a plan, yeah, I could read it. And this project went way long, and now it's like mid-February, and they're like, "We're ready to stripe," and I'm like, "No, you're not. It's fucking mid-February. Like I can't. Oh no, it's got to get done, and we got to do it." And so again, I'm like, "Okay," and I went in, and now I'm like, this is like one where fake it till you make it goes incredibly wrong because you put yourself out there as a company that can lay out and paint a 7-story new, but I didn't really know much about line striping, right? Like I knew how to read a plan, and yeah, I could run the machine, but in between, I hadn't fucking clue, no clue. So and not to mention, like one of my best workers, Mark, at the time was going through a divorce, and he didn't want to get his child support, like, so he on a big salary, so he went and took a smaller job over the winter, thinking that would lower his fucking child support, which is a flawed theory, folks. Don't never believe that. So I got this young, like 18-year-old kid to come help me, right? And it's fucking cold, man. And I mean, we had space heaters trying to keep the machines warm. It was just a shit show. But um I'm like, man, I gotta figure out how to do this. The good thing is that everybody was done, so it wasn't like there was a bunch of workers walking around going, "These
Yeah.
fucking guys have no clue what they're doing." And they just left us by ourselves. And through that job, like I figured out basically how to lay out work. I figured, it was like a trial by error thing. And before I knew it, it was like, well, that wasn't that hard. But what I learned, and the reason I went off on this tangent, is when you're a line striper and you're just respraying jobs, it's easy.
Right. Yeah.
Life's easy. You show up, the line's very transparent through the sealer, and you just respray it. Or even better, there is no sealer, you're just painting over old lines. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy. But when someone hands you a plan for a gas station, and now you realize when they put the concrete forms in for the sidewalk, they were 8 inches over where they should be. And then when they laid the form for that curb on the other side of the lot, that's 4 inches. And we just lost a foot. And you're supposed to be 22 feet off of that curb to your first mark. And you have to figure out how to fix all of that on the fly. That's when, like, when you're able to do that type of shit, that's when like, you've got this whole thing figured out.
Yeah.
And it is an aesthetics thing. You want line striping as the last thing that you do. It's like doing trim work in someone's house. Somebody could build a nice, beautiful house, but you send a guy like me in there with a saw, and none of my joints line up. I got spaces in my floor. It's gonna make the whole job look like shit.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer in, look, if you're gonna, yeah, you might not understand how to line stripe on your own, and it might be more comfortable for you to go out and hire a different company. But look, I taught myself by I bought a cheap sprayer, and at night I'd get out of work, I'd go fill up a 5-gallon bucket of water, and I'd go up to the Shaw's that had closed down, and I'd fucking go out there and just spray. Well, these people must have been like, what is this? Who is this guy? He's up here every night. Like, but I wanted to learn. I pull the trigger. I wanted to know gun placement, and where does the machine line up? And I mean, before you knew it, it was like things got better, and then things got better. And then again, you get into a situation where now your line striping division is like, my company, we do seal coating, line striping, crack filling, and we do sport courts. Now, some people might go, well, crack filling and seal coating are one thing. Line striping could kind of be its own thing, but really the three come together.
Right.
But when you start getting to the point where, like, your line striping can be its own company and your crack filling can be its own company. Like, my crack filling could just be its own company right now, so much so I just went and bought a mastic machine because it was just another thing that I could offer,
Right.
and look, don't be afraid to take off bigger bites of the pie. And yeah, you might not go out there and make it look right the first time, but if you're upfront with people, hey, look, you got a guy with a car dealership, he's only got a half a dozen lines, and you're like, look, I won't charge you for the line striping because I'm going to do it. And I'm not sure how it's going to come out, but it's good thing is we just sealed the parking lot. So if I fuck it up too much, I can just keep blacking it out. But like, you have to learn how to do it at some point. You have to learn, you have to be bold enough to say, I'm not giving that guy any more of my money. Like, how many line striping jobs have you subbed out over the years? It's not you, but whoever may be watching that. And, some of these guys, I charge a lot of money to go line straight for another company. Okay. So it's either by the half day or the full day. So I don't care if you have one handicap. If it's under a half a day, it's $1,500. If it's a full, so to be able to justify going out and paying one handicap in one loading zone, somebody $1,500, like, there are paving companies that happily pay me that, whatever they need,
Right.
they just figure it into the price. They know it's going to look great when it's done. But think about it. You're charging somebody $1,500 for 40 cents a paint and 2 hours worth of work, including travel, but at the end of the day, like, you need to charge what you feel you're worth,
Right.
and it's not a situation where you get guys who feel comfortable. When you started doing this, how you were probably like me in the sense that you probably looked at what you had for bills that week, right? And said, what do I got? Okay, I got $1,800 I got to make. This is what I need. And it didn't matter if you had 7 driveways to do. You were probably doing them all for $210 a piece. just
Yep.
so you could get that 1,800 bucks.
Yep.
Where if you really thought of what you were worth and believed in yourself enough, you'd charge 400 bucks a driveway, and you would have walked out of the weekend with 6,300 bucks.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
but you have to believe in yourself that you can. That number one, you can do it, and number two, that you're worth it. You
Right,
know.
yeah. Now back
So
to line striping. I noticed you have the laser line now. You use the
I
laser.
got three of them.
Yep.
Yep, three of them. I
How
love
much
them.
was that like a huge game changer in striping?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret. And maybe if you saw my video, you know it already. But Sherwin-Williams, if you're a line striping company or you're a seal coating company that wants to get into doing line striping, Sherwin-Williams is your best friend. Now you might say, like, I don't want to use Set Best, I don't want to use Hotline. It's shit paint. Yeah, it is shit paint. It's cheap though. It's good. It's shit paint that's cheap. So like I was paying fucking $52 for a 5-gallon pail, which is like crazy, And if you are a customer of theirs, they have this like credit extension program that they will, extend to you. Now, I talk to guys all the time. Well, I got shit credit. I'm not. It's not going to be beneficial to me. No, it's not the same. It's not the same type of credit. And again, I'm here. You want to use me? Put me down as a reference. It's trade references. So it's people like, like me or Ian or Eric or anybody else for that matter, who will say on your behalf, yeah, he's a good guy. He'll pay his bills. You get three of those people, you can get anything you want from them. So I had my 2850, and I was always a Titan guy, like Marv from Wizcoat. Was always Titan guy to a fault, even though I knew Graco was better because I bought the Titan. I had to pretend like Titan was better, just like I'm sure Marvin does, But at the end of the day, fucking Graco makes the best line stripers money. They make the best everything money can buy. I mean, I have so much of their equipment all through that I've gotten through Sherwin-Williams. And the way you do it is, you call you call your local Sherwin-Williams. Hey, I want to speak to my sales rep. The sales rep will come out, talk to you. Again, fake it till you make it. He doesn't know shit about your company. Okay. So he's only going to know what you tell him and what he can look and see on his own. So again, if you've stolen Ryan's pictures of parking lots and he goes to look at your thing and he sees, wow, this fucking guy's doing, 2,000 parking lots. Like, this guy's a player, and you can tell him whatever you want to hear. I go through 4 pallets of paint a month. Like, oh, okay. Oh, it must be a slow month. I'm just not going through the paint like I thought I would. But they'll give you whatever equipment that you want and whatever paint that you want, as long as you can pay it off through that season, which you don't have to. I never did. But you can say, I want a line laser 3900 with auto layout. I want the lasers. I want the buggy. I want the driver. I want everything. I want any Graco product. I have a Graco thermo grazer, like a thermoplastic, piece of equipment for putting thermo down.
Yeah.
They're like 20 grand a piece, but they'll give it to you for nothing. Like, pick what you want, even if you want to get in with just something small, 3,600, they'll give it to you. And then they'll say, you haven't the rest of the season to pay this off. And if you don't pay it off for the rest of the season, as long as you're making like an effort and you're showing them, but you will be able to pay it off because you'll be making money, and I built my striping business on the back of Sherwin-Williams, because every year I would get a machine, the best machine that I could buy, in the 3,900 class, and then I'd pay that off. And then the next year I'd get another one. And then the next year I'd get another one. And like, at the time I didn't fucking have, it's like, I'm a firm believer in if you build it, they will come. Right. So I bought all this equipment, I stuck it away. And then the next season I get a call from a guy who manages Lowe's. And for the next 3 years, I do like 90 different Lowe's locations, crack filling and line striping.
Yep.
And because I had that equipment, I was able to go out and do it in one night. You're able to go out and stripe sometimes 2 locations in an evening with the right equipment. Yeah. So you know, and you can do that through anything. I mean, Sherwin-Williams is great. You can get a job for paint and say, yeah, this is a job. I need a pallet of white paint, but this job's going to take me 2 months to do. They'll put that paint purchase in a different category, and your payments on that paint don't start for 2 months
Oh,
when
wow.
you're expected to get paid for that job.
Yep.
So again, there's so many different ways that Sherwin-Williams like can help a company get bigger. You know, their paint might not be the best, and their supply chain may be a little but they have the cheapest, they have the most buying power from Graco. So the guy at your Seal Master or wherever you get your shit from is not going to be able to get you a Graco cheaper than Seal Master does. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who it is,
Yeah.
they're just not buying the volume like Sherwin-Williams is. And it's a good way to get into the business. I tell guys like, yeah, you can buy somebody's old striper. But if you don't really know much about stripers, the last thing you want to do is buy a striper from somebody, use it 2 times, and then find out, oh, the packing needs to be redone.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know shit about stripers. How are you going to fix the packing? You know?
Then you bring
So
it anyways.
yeah, yeah. And then they say, why don't you just get a new one? And then they tell you about their program, and then you're getting a new one. So it's there are a lot of opportunities like that for guys to to help them grow themselves, so
Yeah.
to say. You know?
Now, I know you give out a ton of information like with seal coating, the pricing of cracks, all this other stuff, but it seems like everybody wants to know from Ryan Anderson how you got involved in sports courts and what's the secret to them.
Oh man. So fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. The first job I did, that guy thought I fucking done like 30 a year probably before. I and I walked into Seal Master. There was this guy, Chad, who was the salesperson at the time. And he said, hey, have you ever done a basketball court before? And I was like, oh yeah, I've done basketball courts. Oh yeah. And he was talking about colored acrylics. And I fucking even know what that was. Like I was just like, what is it? And he's points to the poster. Oh, we got this stuff. And I was like, how do you do it? And he was like, you're just squeegeeing, like you squeegee in a driveway. I was like, I could do that. Like at this point, I was this, 10 decade of squeegee, and I'm like, I'm the squeegee master. Like, sure, I can do that. So the job was in Worcester. It was a quarter court, what I call a quarter court backyard in someone's house, behind someone's house, and it was blue. So one solid blue. So I get up there, and they give me these buckets ready, the RTU buckets. Well, I thought they were RTU buckets, but they weren't. It was concentrate, right? So I get up there, I open these buckets. They tell me, oh, you got to mix it. You sand at the bottom. I mix it. I fucking dumping dumping the stuff out, right? And I remember thinking, like, wow, this stuff is really thick. Like, it's like sealer concentrate, but like really thick. Just to give you an idea, if you get into this and you start doing this, if you don't pick the right drill from the beginning, you will burn drills. You will walk in a Home Depot, buy the most expensive drill. That's a $300 drill. 3 seconds in that barrel and you burn that thing out. Like it's so thick that there's so much resistance, right? So I'm working the stuff. I'm like, wow, and I didn't know any better. I thought it looked good. And then I get down back to the end. I'm getting ready to go through the gate. I mean, dude, I'm talking like this much left to go right in front of the door. And I run out and I'm like, huh. I walk over, I got these four buckets there. I got all the shit around the edges, So I scrape it all into this one bucket. I had like a cup of water. I kind of mix it up. I dump it on the spot. Done. Fucking looks great. Guy calls me the next day. What the hell did you do to this court? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I go up there and it was just like the part with the concentrate looked all right, but the part by the door or the gate to go in was like a much brighter blue. And it was like, I didn't even know. I don't know. I didn't even know why that happened, and it was like shit. So I call Seal Master, they give me another bucket. what people don't tell you about sport courts when you start is there's only one way to do it, and that's a consistent coat, right? You can't go out onto a sport court into the middle and touch it up from halfway down or even just a little square because it's it all needs to be done at the same time or it's not going to look uniform at all, right? So tennis courts have a certain type of silica sand in it that's machined to not have edges. So when you use regular sand for sealer, it's just like beach sand, right? If you looked at it under a microscope, it's like a snowflake. It's going to be unique. It's going to have edges. It's going to look very different than tennis court sand, which is rolled in a machine to have little to no edges, right? The edges are what reflects the light. So if you go off into doing driveways with a squeegee, then this. When I'm standing at the driveway looking up at the house, I don't see the windrows. But when I'm standing in the front yard looking at the driveway from the side, I see all the lines. That's the sand, you know. That's that's the sand. It's the same thing if you take your carpet and you rub your hand over one way and then the other way, it's the same carpet. Like, but it looks different because of the way it's laying, how the light's reflecting off of that. So um and that comes into a big something big here in a minute, but the I didn't know that. Like I didn't know any of that. Like I just didn't know that. So I had to so then they give me another bucket and I go up there to try to just fix this one spot. But I can't just fix this one spot because now you see the seam. It I That's how I learned this has to be done. Oh, this has to be done in complete coats. I had to do a whole nother coat over the whole thing and bring the thing in, right? Then it came time to stripe it. And now, like when we stripe, I have tape guns, these special tape guns that we use. But back then, dude, I didn't, I was just marking it on the ground. I'm using string on a piece of chalk to do my arches. Like it was primitive, and and that was the first one that I did, which then catapulted me into you can do sport courts. Well, Sealmaster has a lead program where anybody in that area who's capable of doing sport courts, Sealmaster will just load you up with leads. They have a huge online premise when it comes to doing if you go online, type in tennis court resurfacing, chances are you're going to get funneled through their system because they have such a large market share of this. But then what they do is if you're a customer of theirs, they'll send you that lead, right, for that area. Now, once that became the case, they just started throwing fucking sport courts at me, And the second and the third job that I did was, really what made me like, because I'm the type of guy. I get people, same thing. People ask me all the time. I can show you my Instagram, and it's tons of people who are just like, "Can I come work with you? Can I come work with you? I just want to learn how to do this. I just want to learn how to do this. I'll pay you to work with you. How much do you charge to teach people?" And it's like, wow, there is a lot of guys that want to do this.
Yeah.
My guys love to do sport courts because it's so gratifying. It's such a I mean, you get people that are just, we call them hangers. They just hang on the fence and watch you work. And they're just like, okay, this is so great. And my guy, you get off on that. You feel like a rock star. Like, when you're taking something that's so old and dilapidated and then transforming it into something beautiful, right? And that's, you know, so when you're starting off doing sport courts, doing new pavement or it's fucking easy. I tell guys who want to get involved in it, it's like, look, you're not going to be able to go out there and find a guy that's got a brand new tennis court and charge him top dollar to do that tennis court, right? Because like you said, squeegeeing is an art form, right? Everything that you do with that squeegee is going to reflect in your work. So let's say you take your squeegee and you drop your squeegee on the court. It's like you pull your row, you get to the end, you turn around, you drop your squeegee on the court, you start going, you just left a tool mark. That's going to look like shit when it dries.
Yeah.
So you have to know that you have to make sure your blade's clean. Every pass, you either got to drop your blade behind you on where it's dry and scrape it, or you got to lay paper down the whole side of that line, and then you start on the paper, you drag off of the paper onto the court. You have to know that when you get to the end of, let's say you're doing the inbounds, when you get to the end of your inbounds, when you have a bead of acrylic that's 2 inches wide, this ain't the fucking driveway, Jack. You ain't pulling that shit out into the road, right? you you got to have paper there to pull, because what happens is guys, and again, this is how I learned, right? You get down to the end. Oh shit, I got a cup's worth, dude. I got a cup's worth. I'm just gonna drag it to the edge and then pull it up the side. As soon as it dries, it looks like your fucking tennis courts have got a cowlick.
Yeah.
It's like everything that you do transfers into this tennis court. So, there's a guy in my town right now who I kind of got started in the business, and now he's, Joe Schmo Sports Court, and he's doing all these new courts, and yeah, it's like one of the local seal master guys called to try to get me to go out to lunch, and they were like, I told him, I said, look, I'll Eric knows the story here, but to keep it professional, I just stopped doing business with that, but they're trying to get us to do business again. So I said, look, you throw me tennis court leads, I'll buy your material to do your tennis courts. Like, I'm an honest guy like that. Well, we already got a guy. And then I'm like, you got a guy? Like, who's your fucking guy? Like, I'm the guy, And then they bring this guy's name up, and I was like, oh. And it's like, well, I can see for new courts, and anybody watching this, if you have a brand new tennis or basketball court and it's one solid color, chances are you can go out there and do it and have it look okay, But if you have two colors and you don't know how to work, because you can do your middle is going to be fine, but once you get into your edges and you start doing the really narrow parts, again, everything that you do with that squeegee is going to transfer to that court. So if you're don't have your techniques down, when you get done, it's just going to look like a hot mess, right? So that's it's a long story, but I promise it's going somewhere. You get to a point where now you're doing these tennis courts for these people. Seal Master says, hey, I got a lead for a school, in Sturbridge, which is 20, 30 minutes from me. I go out there, I look at this court. It's an old concrete tennis court. Now, anybody who knows anything about sport courts knows that concrete is the worst surface to try to make a game court out of, because it's very susceptible to hydrostatic pressure, which is vapor underneath the pad pushing its way up in the form of vapor. It causes delamination, which is why if you've ever been like in a shop or a warehouse, when it's humid, this concrete starts to sweat. That's the moisture from under the pad coming out in either the form of condensation or hydrostatic pressure. So that takes the surface coating with it, and so I go out there and I look at this, and it looks like the surface of the moon, right? It's got all these holes in it just from bubbles. That's what hydrostatic pressure does to a court. It makes it blister, and then that blister pops, and then so I'm like, I don't know how to do this, right? Like, I don't know how to fucking fix this, but I wanted the job so bad, right? Like, because I'm like, this is 4 tennis courts. I'm thinking, what's this going to look like for my profile? If I can show that I can do 4 tennis courts. So I tell the guy, look, I don't know how to do this, man. Like, I'm going to charge you $8,000, which is, at that time, tennis courts now are going for 12 to 14 now. So I for one. So I'm saying I'll do all 4 of them for $8,000, right? Which is about what the material cost. But I wanted to learn how to do it, So I go out there and I did it, and it didn't look that bad. But I didn't understand about hydrostatic pressure. So that just made me feel like, oh, I did this. Like, I fucking did this. Like, right. I can do this. I can do this, So I started taking more jobs, and I took a job right after that. And the thing is the guy that owned the Seal Master, the franchise owner, he didn't know shit about doing tennis courts either. He And this was the guy. So I go in there and I'd say, I got this problem. And he'd go, oh, fix it this way. But he didn't know how to do shit. So he doesn't know anything. I don't know anything. So he gives me a brand new court to do for this guy down in Rhode Island, right? This was a huge deal, right? This guy was he lived right next to Ty Law, who also needed a basketball court done, right? This was right before Ty Law, who's a Patriots player, for those who don't know, who was just about to be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. And I was like, oh my God, this is a fucking opportunity right here, you know? So the guy wants his court Patriots colors, right? He wants it blue and he wants it with the gray. So I go to the guy that owned almost said his name. I went to the guy that owned the franchise. I was like, hey, I need this material. He gives me the stuff and he gives me sealer sand to mix in with the sand. Now, for those who don't know, tennis court acrylic has sand in it. Naturally, you put sand in it. That's what controls the speed of the tennis ball. So a tennis ball has all that fuzz on it. That's not, just there. It's just like the dimples on a golf ball help it go straight, just like the lumps on a basketball help you with grip. The fuzz on a tennis ball controls the speed of the ball. So as you get into building courts, you realize that tennis courts are rated 1 through 5, and that's speed, your speed rating. So when you go do a court for somebody, you ask them, what do you want? What do you want the speed to be? Do you want it to be a fast court? Do you want it to be a slow court? And you can control that by how much sand that you put in the material itself, So, but I didn't know that. And I didn't even know that then, right? I learned that 3 years after I started doing courts, right? So this guy's telling me, oh yeah, I go, it needs sand. I needed it. It was taking me so many coats to get it to cover, right? It was so transparent. Yep. And he goes, oh, you got to add sand. And I'm like, why didn't you fucking tell me that before? I just killed myself doing these 4 tennis courts. So he sells me the, 80 mesh white bags of silica sand like you put in your sealer, right? I didn't know any better. He didn't know any better. We go out, we start doing the job, and sure as shit, it looks like a fucking hot mess. It looks like, when you spackle your ceiling and it looks like you go in someone's cellar and their ceiling's got spackle where it looks like if you jumped on the bed and hit your head, you'd have fucking things sticking out of the top of your head. This is how this thing looked, right? This guy is away on vacation. He's he's the head of the sheetrock union for fucking Rhode Island, right? Really mobby type guy, just a bad dude, and this thing looked like shit, right? And what sucked even more is at this point I was working for Sealmaster, right? I'd left my job driving a truck. I'm working as their general manager, and my boss is letting me go home from work, letting me leave work in the middle of the day to go try to do this. It's 95 degrees out. And again, now what I know about tennis courts, if you got a 90-degree day, this stuff dries instantly. As soon as you do your first pass, you go back and do your second pass, it's already dry. So, we're talking 10 seconds, 15 seconds, it'll flash over. Yeah. So when it's that hot, you need to go out and get your coats down by 7 a.m, So I'm going out there when it's that hot. I'm using this really thick, sandy material, and the gray especially looks like a fucking cellar in someone's cellar. And, and this guy comes home and I tried to fix it and I couldn't figure out why it was doing it. Long story short, the guy threw me out of there. He said, get the fuck out, dude. You can't do this. You don't know what you're doing. Get out of here. That was that was a sobering moment for me. That's where fake it till you make it goes completely fucking wrong. Okay. Because I'm a, this, but I'm a guy that I really care about what I do. I really fucking care about it. And I care about doing a good job. I care about not being a guy who's a fucking poser, and look, there are guys that go out there, they can talk their way through this entire industry and do the shittiest work you've ever seen in your life, right? I'm not that guy. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I have built such a strong company going so slowly, I mean, I've grown small, but I'm at the point now where I'm solid. You know,
Right.
like I don't even have to advertise. I don't advertise. I haven't spent money in advertising in years because the phone just rings, and you know, when you get into an area where now you're doing these tennis courts and you got a guy looking at you at 11 o'clock at night, throwing you out of his fucking house, telling you that, like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, get out of here, dude. I'm like, it was a sobering ride home, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I felt horrible, like, and and then ironically enough, I'm like, I gotta, because I'm a guy, I like to do good. I'm a do good guy, so um I I found we had a local court in town here, and I was like, I know I can do, I know I can do this, and I go to the town and I'm like, I want to redo these two basketball courts for nothing. Like, I needed the practice. It was obvious that I needed the practice,
Right.
and I as much as I make YouTube videos, and I hate to say this, like, I don't watch anybody's videos. I don't watch my own videos.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this is very, like, you know, to say for a guy who's trying to offer advice. I don't want anybody's fucking advice. I need to do this and I need to fail on my own.
Right. Yeah.
If I go out and I see Eric Stanley do something and then I try to do it like Eric Stanley did and I fuck up, guess what, Eric Stanley, I fucking hate you. Because I'm like, God damn it, I listened to Eric and this is what Eric did, which is why I'm not so apt to make videos about this is how you do things,
Yeah.
as opposed to this was my experience when I did things.
Right.
And that's a big difference, like it really is. Like, if you were going to go out and you want to be a company who can do sport courts, you know, it's a lot of trial and error. And how do you look at somebody, you know, when I first started doing this, I was charging $4,000 to do a tennis court,
Yeah.
right? Because my level of work was only sufficient enough to charge $4,000. It made me think, fucking up on this guy's house so bad, made me go home and think, like, okay, I need to do what I did with seal coating, right? I need to be able to just look at people and say, I'm going to give you a really cheap price, but you're going to help me figure this out.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to help. We're going to, I can't promise you it's going to be the best. And, I'd have a lot of people that go, you're not my guy. Like, I didn't just spend all this, and that's fine. You move on to the next person. But what made me do a lot of soul searching that day was driving home from that guy's house in Rhode Island, was making me think, like, wow, this guy, even though he's in a $2 million house, like, you can't judge people like that. You
Right.
can't look at people and go, "Oh, this guy's got a fucking basketball court in his backyard," like, and start hating on people for shit like that. Like, these are your customers, right?
Yeah.
These are the guys that are gonna hire you. Who do you think's gonna fucking hire you? You think the regular Joe Schmo is gonna have the money to put a tennis court in his backyard? No. Like, these are your people. Like, whether you fit in with them or you don't, or you despise, some of these guys that have businesses, like, they go up and they see a guy, you know, I just recently went down to Washington to look at a job, and the guy's, he's in the $7 million house, and he goes, the reason you're in Washington right now, and, like, I didn't hire, because I asked him, why am I here? Like, why am I here? It's fucking gotta be 100 tennis court companies between me and you.
Right.
Why am I here? And he's like, well, I watch your videos and I can tell that you're passionate about what you do. And I can tell that you're not the type of guy to show up at my house and, like, see this. And, like, he goes, I'm going to tell you something. He's on a small 1 acre property. He goes, you want to know how much my landscaper charged me for just cleaning up the leaves? I said, no. He said, $9,000. And I'm like, what? Like, my fucking yard's like a little bit bigger than yours. I pay my guy like $500 to do a fall cleanup. He's like, and he just points to his house. He's like, that happens everything. I have somebody that comes in to have to fix something. It turns into fucking 9 other things,
Right.
and he's like, I don't want somebody to take advantage of me, and when you get into doing this, you can't, think that you're worth top dollar. And that's where I lost myself with this sheetrock guy. Was I had a couple under my belt. They came out fairly decent. And it was like, okay. And then I got in and I got absolutely ruined on this job, right? And he sent me packing, and that made me do a lot of you know, self-evaluating. And I just decided I'm just going to start doing these courts for next to nothing.
Yeah.
And when my work starts to get better, then I'll start charging more. And I
Yeah.
started going from 4,000 to 6,000, from 6,000 to 8,000. And then before you know it, you know, you figured it all out. And, but what, something that you have to know if you're going to try to get into sports courts, so to say, is it's not so much putting them in, right? Like if somebody shows up with a new asphalt, it's pretty fucking simple. I mean, you just put it down, don't be messy, be cautious of your squeegee marks, and that's it. Where where it really comes into play is when you have old courts, dilapidated courts. Now you have stuff that needs repairs,
Yeah.
you know. And again, it's hard to explain to somebody how to get involved. It's all trial by error. You
Yeah.
have to find things that work for you. At the end of the day, repairing a sport court is comparable to like repairing a car that was in an accident. You know, you you can put it together a million different ways and then paint it, and no one is going to know how it was put together
Yeah.
until it starts to fall apart, you know. And getting it to the point where it's not going, you know, you got guys who most of the warranties in this business are good for a year, right? So you get guys who just do good enough work to get it through the first year, and then when it starts to fall apart, it's like, meh, meh,
Yeah.
warranty's up, you want to pay me, I'll come back, you know. and and again, it's you see more and more companies. I'm not a guy that is like I don't want to shy anybody away from doing this, even a guy locally. When you know, when I found out, I think the guys from Sealmaster like tried to tell me that this guy was doing sport courts, like it was gonna fucking bother me, like thinking like, well, we're giving our leads to him now. And it was like, in my mind, I was just think at first I was fucking pissed. I was like, oh, that motherfucker, you know. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, wow, man, I remember like what it was like to just get started, you
Right.
know, like how hard it was, like to just get going and like to get customers. And look, I mean, I tell people, look, I can do a tennis court anywhere in the country, and I can just fly in. Like I don't need tools, right? I can have all my stuff drop shipped, send me a squeegee in a box, I'll put it together and I'll fuck. But at the end of the day, like when I started doing this, I was working out of like a little small enclosed trailer. I'd have to get my 55-gallon drums in there. And
Yeah.
oh man, it's so heavy, you know. Now I look at what I have just for doing sport courts, and it's like, no, you need equipment to do sport courts. You need rack trucks. You need equipment that's either box trucks or rack trucks. You got to be able to power wash. Like, you know, if you're going to have a sport court business, you might as well, like, you know, a lot of guys do paving and then seal coating, right? It's a niche. Like it's a 70-30, 50-50, however you split it. I do seal coating and tennis courts. That's my niche. You know, that's my split. But if you're just going to get into tennis courts, your niche is going to be power washing,
Yeah.
because for you to do this good of a job, right? And to get that to hold up right, you got to wash it, and you can't go out and wash it with something you bought from Home Depot. You got to go out and buy the equipment to wash it, you
Yeah.
know?
I see your videos.
Yeah.
You get some good stuff.
Yeah. And I started with just these little surface attachments on the end of my wand,
Yeah.
you know, and we were out there the whole day doing fucking tennis courts, washing them that way, you know. And then I saw a video of someone using an automated, you know, pusher, and I was like, I gotta have that, you
Yeah.
know. And then luckily, the I reached out to the Mystic Power Washing Company and was just like, look, this is who I am, this is what I do. Um, I will make videos using your equipment. I'll talk up your shit. And then before you knew it, I had a good relationship with them. And I mean, same thing that once you have that equipment, you can do anything. If you have a surface washer that you can use to power wash tennis courts, now you can go into a gas station that you're getting ready to seal coat, and you can look at the owner and go, look, I can clean your sidewalks. I can clean the pad under your apron. Like I can make this place look brand new. And it's just a way to upsell
Yeah.
the work that you're doing and to offer a better job,
Yeah.
you know? So I tell guys, you know, as far as the sport court things go, is don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to mess up because you're gonna, and offer, get offered to do, unless you're a dirtbag, then go do whatever the fuck you want to do. But if you're like me and you have a conscience and you don't feel like you're going to be able to sleep at night with some guy telling you to get the fuck off his property because you don't know what the fuck you're doing,
Yeah.
then find a daycare, find a church, find a town, something that has a basketball court that just needs resurfacing. And you can go in and, it might cost you $1,200 in material, but you're going to gain real life experience. You're going to get your name out there because all you got to do is tell the local paper or, some of the town people in the town to talk about it on Facebook, but your name will get out there for doing that court. You'll get recognition from that, which will turn into more work, or if you're trying to get into like the repair side of things, the cosmetic side of things, then, there are dilapidated tennis courts out there everywhere. One thing that I learned about doing this is even if you're in an area where you think, oh, there's no tennis courts around me, there's a ton of tennis courts around you. There are so many tennis courts in people's backyards and through the towns. And yeah, it's one of those things now where they're not, tennis is kind of on its way out, but pickleball is on its way in. So what's happening is you're getting all of these towns, all of these schools, they're starting to repurpose these tennis courts into pickleball courts. So if you find one dilapidated tennis court in your town that no one's used in forever, but has, it's structurally sound, it's flat, I mean, it's not heaving and stuff like that, then you can go out and look at them and say, I will repurpose these. I'll build these over. I'll turn them into pickleball courts and I won't charge you for anything, but I need the experience. Are you willing just to pay what it costs for the materials itself? And this is what I'll give you in return. Now, it might not be, finish wise, it might not look perfect. You might have line. And when I say, like, I'm critical, right? So what I'm talking about is people pointing out, maybe things that people don't even notice, right? Like with sport courts, it's funny when you see tennis on television, the way those camera angles are specifically set around, not, you'd think it's around watching, but it's not. Like the way that the sun reflects off the courts shows lines like nobody's business. So the tennis courts are going to look the best when the sun is at your back. So a lot of your camera angles on these professional things are done with the camera pointing at the person's back, which keeps the lines down to a minimum. If you're not, aware of stuff like that, then you're going to leave windrows, you're going to leave marks. And that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. This stuff is like, it's like cover up for a woman, foundation as they're putting their makeup on, it is. And it will cover up and it will hide most things unless you're standing right on top of it. You can do a tennis court and be standing at the fence and the tennis court looks like $1,000,000. And then you walk 10 feet in and look straight down on something and you see something you didn't see from the fence, but having the balls to be able to go in there and just say, I'm going to try this and whatever it is, I'm going to live with. That's the hurdle that you have to overcome when you're doing tennis courts,
Now, this thing, I'd like to, we'll end this here pretty soon. But I think the sports courts could probably be a whole nother episode type thing.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we'll throw this out there on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, and just mention that maybe we could do like a round table type thing or something like that, where get a bunch of guys on and just they can ask questions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think, like I said, people have reached out and said that they couldn't. Like you saw it, they couldn't wait to hear yours because they're looking at sports and stuff like that. But so let's wrap it up here. We'll see what will come from this one. See if we get any questions about sports courts. And if we do, I'll contact you and try to set something up to get like a.
Thanks, man.
But anyway, I don't know if what's your YouTube? Is it just Premiere?
Yeah, it's Premiere. Yeah. So on social media, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, we're the @Sealer Guys. So @ Sealer Guys, and that'll take you to pretty much everywhere where we are. I mean, you could just put @Sealer Guys into Google at this point. And
Yep.
um,
Yeah, I would highly recommend everybody check his stuff out. He touched on a few things in here about Google ads and stuff like that and clicking people away. Pretty interesting
yeah,
stuff. It's
that's the thing that I would say, if you know, if you're getting into this business, and something that I wish we had more time to talk about is advertising, because there are a lot of pitfalls, a lot of things that guys get into, jump right into, thinking that, it's easy to get your socks talked off by somebody in a situation like that when you think that they're going to do it's all bullshit. And there are just, so many things you have to watch out for when you're getting into this. People just want your money, you know, and
okay. We can do
I
another
wish you the
promo.
best of luck. I'm here for you if you ever need anything. And, anybody that knows anything about my channel knows I'm very easy to get a hold of. I'm
Yeah,
very approachable. So I'm always here to answer questions. And,
yeah.
uh,
Where it's winter time. If you don't have any snow, we can hop on and do another one sometime. Do some advertising stuff.
yeah. We're getting ready to build a building here that
Oh, yeah.
should be done here in April. And,
Yep.
once I get this shop put together, I'm planned on launching my podcast, and I'd like to, yeah, I'll make sure I get you on, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of stuff going on between now and then to talk about. So
Yeah.
it was good finally meeting you in person,
Yeah. Same to you, buddy. Well, good. Hey, thanks for coming on and sharing your
Yeah,
knowledge.
man.
All right. Talk to you later, buddy.
Yep, bye-bye.